Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Giannoutzis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutzis.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, they can inspire real change. It is now time to adapt in our fast-moving world. So listeners, hey, welcome. What I'm going to encourage you to do is just check out the launch of our Facebook group called Leadership is Changing. Go to Facebook, check that out, and thoroughly look forward to seeing you on the in that Facebook group. So just check that out. Hey, today I have a guest who's a really cool guy, very special to me because he's helped me in relation to the podcast. And his name is John Lee Dumas. He is the host of Entrepreneurs on Fire, an award-winning podcast where he interviews inspiring entrepreneurs who are truly on fire. With over 2,500 episodes, that's right, 2,500 episodes, 1 million plus listens a month, and 7 figures of annual revenue. JLD, as he's known, or John Lee Dumas, is just getting started. Hey, John, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us as a guest. John, I've got a few questions for you. The first question is, who's your favorite leader? Now, this person could be alive or from history. So who's your favorite leader and why?
Well, first off, Denis, it is a pleasure to be here. Congratulations on all the success and all the inspiration, impact, and motivation you're spreading with the world. So please keep up the heat, my man. And I will say, I love to read biographies. I've just been a big consumer of those over the years. And one that's always stuck with me that I've actually gone back and reread a couple times is Benjamin Franklin's biography. I just loved it. And one thing that I love about him specifically as a human being is he doesn't take life too seriously. Like, he's quirky, he has fun, he still jokes around. He wasn't just this like incredibly serious person that just thought everything he did was the end of the world or the beginning of the world. Like, it was just something he did, and he was dust in the wind. And like this one go round in life, he was going to have as much fun as he could. And he did, and he made massive impacts and all these inventions and all these different ambassador things and yada, yada. But at the end of the day, he was himself and he had fun doing it. And that's why I admire him, because honestly, in this one life I have to live, I want to have fun.
Yeah. Best way to do it, isn't it? Have fun. I mean, who wants to be around somebody who's miserable? I'd rather be around somebody who's too right. Hey, the show here is called Leadership is Changing. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but leadership is changing. What does it mean for you?
Leadership is changing. And the reason why I think that is because we used to live in a world where there were just gatekeepers for everything. I mean, you wanted to be in the movies, like you had to go through the gatekeepers in Hollywood. You wanted to be a singer, you had to go through the gatekeepers, and fill in the blank of whatever record studio label was big at the time. Like, you wanted to be in finance, you had to go through a couple of the biggest firms. That's all gone now. Like, all of these old, white, crinkly gatekeepers that used to exist, by the way, old, white, male, crinkly gatekeepers that used to exist, they're all gone. Their time is gone. They're dinosaurs. The reality is now you can be anybody, anywhere who says to yourself, I am going to solve one problem better than anybody else in the world. And that one problem can be very minuscule, tiny, and niche. And by the way, the more niche, the better.
Mhm.
And you are going to be able to make it. And by make it, I mean, you're going to be able to build a raving fan base for people that are like, thank the Lord that there is somebody out there that is solving my specific problem in a very specific, direct, and high quality way. Like back in 2012, that's all that I did. I saw that nobody was solving the problem of releasing a daily podcast, interviewing a successful entrepreneur. I stepped into that space. I solved that problem. I did it for 2,000 days in a row. I was not a good podcast host. I didn't know what I was doing. I stumbled along in the dark, but I figured things out as I went through. Because guess what, Dennis? The day I launched, I was the best daily podcast host in the world, interviewing entrepreneurs. I was the worst daily podcast host, interviewing entrepreneurs. I was the only daily podcast host, interviewing entrepreneurs. How can you, listeners, become the only?
Yeah, cool. The only, and John, I think that's something that I see with a lot of people, whether they're in leadership roles or entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever it is. A lot of them procrastinate. They tend to not sort of just do anything, and I think what you're just sharing there about the fact that if you go out there and do it, it's never going to be perfect, but you got to start somewhere. I mean, you need tips for anyone about procrastinating or just getting on with it. Any thoughts?
Listen, procrastination is what every human being does because it's easier to procrastinate and we want to go towards the easier. We want to relieve pain. We want to increase pleasure. That's what we do as human beings, relieving pain, increasing pleasure. That's what we do. And guess what procrastinating is? That is relieving pain, or that is increasing pleasure. Is doing both of those things at once because you're not doing the hard work that it's going to take. So if you want to continue to live a life of quiet desperation, if you want to continue to have to grind away, making other people rich, if you want to continue to live a life where you're having to follow other people's orders, then keep procrastinating. But if you actually want to take your life's bull by the horns and steer that bull in the direction that you want it to go and create a life of financial freedom, of location freedom, it starts by saying, you know what? I know I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. I need to stop the procrastination. I need to stop trying to be perfect, and I just need to do it. Every master was a disaster. You need to be open and willing to be a disaster and just start and just go and just drive forward. That is the focus.
Yeah, nice. Every master was a disaster. Team, listeners, it's never going to be perfect. Just go for it. And John is sharing that with us. And John, how has your business or industry changed, and what demand has that put on you or on your team of late?
So if by industry you mean podcasting, I mean, listen, it's all changed because it's been 8 years. And podcasting was something that I identified, and I said, you know what? I love this medium. It's free. It's on demand. It's targeted content. I could see that podcasting was going to become a big part of people's lives. It was going to fill this specific void of when you're driving to work by yourself, or when you're at the gym, or when you're walking your dog, or folding clothes, or doing laundry, or washing the dishes. And I just saw that it was going to be a big and intimate and great medium. And so I went all in on a very broad and vague topic. My niche was I did it daily, but I was just interviewing people. Now people try to do that. And guess what? You're just one of 1,000 people that are interviewing successful entrepreneurs. You need to identify a niche. You need to specifically say, I'm going to be the best at this. I'm going to be the best at solving this one specific problem that my listeners have, and then being the best there. Otherwise, you're just going to get swallowed up into oblivion because you're just a weak, pale, watered down imitation of everybody else.
Yep. Don't be like everyone else. Go out there, do something different. And so, John, if there's one thing that you could share with our listeners about, if you could change in business as a leader something today, what would that one thing be?
I think it would go back to just continuing to chill out more. We just love as humans to take things seriously, to put more stress or anxiety or pressure on X, Y, or Z than needs to be there. Like at the end of the day, you need to go back to that song by Kansas. All we are is dust in the winds. Now, do you need to take pride in what you do? Of course. Do you need to create high quality work and content and production level? Like all of those things, absolutely. But at the end of the day, like, just press that red button, just press record, press start, take action, start, know that nothing's going to be great or perfect. And that's really going to help you by having the attitude of just chilling out, just relaxing. So there's times when I'm just taking things too seriously myself, even though I know this and I've experienced it over the years. And I have to say, JLD, chill out, bro.
And how do you, I mean, what would be some things that you do to chill out? In other words, are you happy to share that with the listeners about what you do to sort of take time out, and how often do you do that to enable that your batteries are recharged, if I can put it that way? What do you do?
Well, it's perspective. Like, you just need to have the right perspective. And again, perspective for me is saying, hey, I am not giving a presidential address to the nation right now. Like, I am on a podcast interview with Dennis, or I am interviewing this person. Like, let's have fun, because nobody wants this to turn into some kind of, like, crazy, serious, patriotic speech. It's like, we're just a couple of guys hanging out, having some fun. So keeping things in perspective, very important. And yeah, having a well-balanced life. So, for me, I've carved out time every single day for exercise. I've carved out time every single day for my breathing exercises, for my yoga, for my relaxation. I go on walks. These are all parts of my day where I'm pulling away from just staring at a computer, building a business.
Yep. Definitely. You got to take time out for sure. And the perspectives, and keeping that perspective is really important. I say to leaders at times, because they do get wound up, and in my intro, I talk about running from email to email, meeting to meeting, and they're just overwhelmed. And I'm like, guys, you're not actually a heart surgeon. Like, you haven't got a life and death situation in your hands right now. For some leaders, they do, because it depends on what kind of role they're playing. But at the end of the day, relax. Let's just have some fun, as you're saying. I love the well-balanced side of things too. That's really, really important. What makes a leader successful today in this fast-paced, ever-changing world?
The key words for me, for any leader, is authenticity, is transparency, and it's just being genuine. People want to be led by people they know, people they like, people they trust. It's so critical on every single level. So the worst advice you'll ever hear in this world is fake it till you make it. Because listen, people can smell inauthenticity a mile away, and they don't want it, and they're never going to follow that leader that's inauthentic, that's not being genuine, that's not being transparent. People understand you're not going to be amazing at X or Y or Z day one. Like, in fact, they don't want you to be, because that makes you human, that makes you real. And then they're going to be able to see you grow, see you evolve, see you improve, and they'll be able to root you on now and enjoy as you get better as a human being at what it is you're doing. Just like people could hear me every day, every week, every month, getting a little bit better as a podcast host, and they were rooting for me. They're like, man, John just wasn't good when he started, but why would he be? I mean, nobody's born a good interviewer, but guess what? He's getting better every single day, every single week. And I'm hearing that transformation, and I'm appreciating that transformation. And that transformation is giving me inspiration. I love it. That is the key.
Yep, cool. And the transformation that you're loving it, I'm sure that the listeners are loving it too, because they can, as you said, can see you moving on and growing from it, which is just a joy to see for everybody to enjoy, which is fantastic. John, if I was to get you to get your crystal ball out and start thinking about the future, where do you see leadership being in the next 5 years?
Really the same thing that we just talked about. I just see it evolving even more in that direction of just people being open, honest, transparent, genuine. And at the end of the day, you're not going to have, again, these 1, 2, or 3 old, white, crinkly, grumpy white men, just being the gatekeepers. You're going to have a whole bunch of micro leaders, people that are carving out a small niche and are becoming the acknowledged leader in that niche. That's where the winners are.
Tremendous. Hey, John, thank you so much for joining our show today. If the listeners are wanting to get hold of you, where should they go?
All the magic happens at eofire.com. We have a ton of free courses for people there on podcasting, coming up with your big idea. So many awesome free resources there for anybody on their entrepreneurial journey. And my podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire. Check it out. We have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Hey, John, thanks for joining us today. Been brilliant having you here. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It is time to adapt in a fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they are being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review, a rating, and also share it with your friends, your family, your network. If there is a question you want to ask me in relation to the show or any feedback you'd like to give me, if there is a question you'd like to give for me to ask my guests, or if there is a question you'd like to ask me in relation to leadership that is changing on the Ask Denis episode, which is an episode that happens once a week, which is a freestyle version, feel free to send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey team, don't forget to check out the new Facebook group, Leadership is Changing. Go to that and check that out. Other than that, thanks for tuning in today. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.